It's 7 o'clock on a Sunday night. You know what that means. It's Topical starts right now. A very good evening to you, South Africa, those watching around the world. My name is Blaine Herman, and this is It's Topical, a digital audience with us tonight. Among them, our guests as well. It's good to see them. Looking forward to their questions for our guests in a short while. We're talking about legacy and leadership tonight, the passing of the Prince of KwaPhindangene, the founder and president emeritus of the Inkatha Freedom Party. President Cyril Ramaphosa describing Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi as an outstanding leader in the political and cultural life of our nation, including the ebbs and flows of our liberation struggle, the transition which secured our freedom in 1994 and our democratic dispensation. No doubt, he leaves a void, but he also leaves a legacy. What is it? And how has it shaped the trajectory of this country? Described by his supporters as an extraordinary life. What contributions did Prince Buthelezi make in the development of this nation? Some argue that it's complex with contradictions. We will explore. His funeral, we now know, will take place this coming Friday, the 15th of September. The announcement was made by the family following a short meeting this afternoon. Look, many are grieving. See the pictures behind me. I heard a grief specialist once say, you have a choice. You can go through something or grow through something. How do we grow as a nation as a consequence of Prince Buthelezi's life and his passing? We will discuss, which leads us to the question of the week. And we're asking you, how would you describe the Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi's legacy following his passing? Let us know at It's Topical, SABC. You know the drill, let's walk and talk. How has his role changed post-1994? He's often been described as a statesman. Sometimes when they were fighting in Parliament, some say he was the voice of reason. Let us know your thoughts at It's Topical, SABC. All right, let's get straight to it. I want to bring in the SABC's Ayanda Mhlongo. She's live for us in Mahlabathini in KwaZulu-Natal, Prince Buthelezi's home. Ayanda, very good evening to you. The Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Nomusa Dube, confirming that there's an ongoing communication with the presidency on the funeral arrangements. What more are we learning at this hour?
Good evening to you, Blaine, and good evening to our viewers at home. Yes, certainly a statement coming through from the Premier of the province, as you've said there, Blaine, confirming that the funeral service of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi will be on Friday, and we've also now learned that there will be a memorial service that will take place on Wednesday here in Ulundi. The funeral service will also be here in Ulundi at the Prince Mangosuthu Stadium, as we understand. Those are the details, Blaine, that we have been provided for now. As you're saying there, that yes, indeed, communication between the presidency as well as the provincial government and the family as well and the IFP is continuing. But this is the details that at this point they were able to share with the South Africans. And we're hoping that tomorrow, Blaine, they will be able to furnish us with more details. Of course, many people are still asking in terms of the type of a funeral that Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi will be honored with, will be accorded with, whether or not it will be a provincial, whether or not it will be a state funeral, or we are still waiting for those details, and we understand that that will be decided by the presidency, who will then make an announcement. Blaine?
Sentiment on the ground, Ayanda, from those you spoke to over the last 2 days or so, what are the big takeaways for you?
Well, Blaine, I mean, as you were saying there, Prince Buthelezi meant different things to different people. And I think from yesterday, when the news broke out of his passing, seeing the numbers of people that immediately flocked here to his home, let me just put aside the leaders. Of course, we would know that the leaders of the IFP, right down from the bottom of the structures, right up to their national leaders, that they've utterly shuttered. They've been shocked to the core. Many of them can barely get through an interview. That is how difficult the last 24 hours has been for them. But for me, Blaine, I think what has stood out is the community around here. Seeing the elderly men, some could barely walk with walking sticks, just wanting to come out here, wanting to come and pay their respects, from the young and the old, clearly devastated by his passing and what he meant for the community. Many saying that it's a dark day. It's a dark day for the community of Ulundi. It's a dark day for the community of KwaZulu-Natal. That the love and the love that he had for his community. People here were saying that no one went to bed hungry. Whatever they needed, he was always just a phone call away. He was always just a walk away. And I think it's the stories that had come from his neighbors. It's the stories that have come from the ordinary community around KwaPhindangena that have really shown what he meant to this community in terms of development. There are many things that he's done for this community, Blaine, and for me, I think that is what has really touched many South Africans, is to hear the stories that have come from the people and how much they feel this is going to leave a huge void in their lives. And they've been saying to us, to sum it up, that it's a dark day for the people of this country.
SABC News' Zayana Mhlongo live for us in Mahlabatini in KwaZulu-Natal. Thank you very much indeed for your reporting. All right, as always, let's get you some context. And for that, we turn to the magic wall, the Prime Minister, the AmaZulu Prime Minister. In 1954, appointed by late King Cyprian Bekuzulu, regarded as the longest-serving Prime Minister, and as you know, was very present during the process of King Mesuzulu Zwelithini's ascending to the AmaZulu throne. I want to talk about Prince Buthelezi and the Inkatha Freedom Party. As you know, in 1974, founded Inkatha Yenkululeko Yesizwe. The 1990s, it became the Inkatha Freedom Party. This period between 1975 and 2019, rather, president of the IFP. Between 1985 and 1990, you'll remember, it was a tumultuous time between supporters of the ANC and IFP, especially in KwaZulu-Natal. The IFP eventually participates in the 1994 election, winning about 10.5% share of the vote. And in 2019, Prince Buthelezi stepped aside as the president of the party. So, important context. We will discuss this further with our guests. I want to get you sentiment on the ground. A regular feature of ours, the Word on the Street feature, diverse views from various areas across the country reflecting the passing and the impact of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. Take a look.
The passing of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi came as a shock to us because he's one of the political giants in South Africa. South Africa has not, IFP has not just lost a leader, but the country as a whole, we have lost a leader.
He was a compassionate and humble leader who wished no harm upon others in our country. Our deepest condolences go out to his family.
He is an elderly man already, and he's given back to us a lot, I know. As I said, bringing that dignity into Parliament and always being that father figure.
We are very, very, very painful as South Africans because Prince Mangosuthu played a big role in our struggle. Remember the times of apartheid. So he will forever be the hero on us.
Mr. Buthelezi, a true people's leader, showcased remarkable leadership skills from a young age. He worked tirelessly for his country and community, fighting against oppression.
Mangosuthu Buthelezi. I know him personally to be a leader, a radical leader. He was very spontaneous and he was very opinionated. Everything that he was saying, he was never shy to speak his mind. He was never shy to stand up for the rights of the people.
All right, that's our word on the street feature. We appreciate your views. Let's get straight to our discussions. Lots of questions to ask, lots of views to get perspective, very important indeed. We're joined by Professor Pitika Ntuli, historian. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Good to have you. Artist and cultural expert. Also a number of guests on our video wall as well. We have IFP President Velenkosini Hlabisa. We also have Professor, will join us soon, Bekim Gomezulu. And also Dr. Mpumi Ngidi, lecturer at the Department of Historical Studies at the University of KZN. Also, our digital audience, we will obviously get your take in a short while. Stand by for that. Let me maybe just start with you, Mr. Hlabisa. And first of all, our deepest condolences goes out to you and your party on this immense loss. No doubt, Prince Buthelezi was an influential figure around the world. But how are you, as the IFP, processing these varied assessments of his legacy?
Thank you very much. I want to greet all the members who are participating in this discussion, as well as your guest in the studio. As you have rightly said, the passing on of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi left a vacuum in the IFP, in the Zulu Kingdom, in the South African political landscape. As we are preparing for his burial, we are also carefully documenting his legacy, that we are obliged to take it forward. Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi leaves a rich legacy in education, in nature conservation, in local economic development, and supporting the SMMEs, as well as the promotion of the African cultural heritage. These are few things that I've mentioned which will mark the life of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi long after he has departed, as we're promoting it to the next generation.
Speaking about the next generation and then maybe the immediate future, and no doubt Prince Buthelezi's story is to an extent interlaced with that of the IFP, and heading towards a crucial election next year. How will this, from your point of view, impact the party?
As we are preparing for elections next year, we have already made a decision that going to elections next year, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi will be our legacy and the foundation upon which we will be building the future of South Africa that has been destroyed by the governing party. Now, on the question of how is this going to affect us, we believe it is going to remain as a strong pillar for the IFP, because you will agree with me, there is leadership deficit in our country. We no longer have honest leaders, leaders who are trustworthy with integrity. That is what Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi carried. We will emulate what he demonstrated, that in South Africa you can live for 70 years in the political landscape and remain corrupt-free. We will be promoting what he stood for, what he promoted, as I indicated, his legacy.
Professor Ntuli, key for a leader, any leader across the spectrum, is moral humility as well as political humility. To what extent did Prince Buthelezi possess both?
In the year 2007, my son died in Durban. It was Prince Mangosuthu who came to my house and said, I will transport the body of your son 700 kilometers to Mahlabathini. And I knew him extremely very well. His humility, his brain, his fastness of brain, his anchoring on culture, and also his desire to find a united South Africa beyond party politics. That's what our discussions with him carried.
Dr. Ngidi, let me bring you into the conversation. Some have described the legacy that Prince Buthelezi has left as complex. To what extent, or maybe let me rephrase, what adds to the complexity of his legacy, do you think? If you can unmute, Doc. There you go.
Yes, thank you very much. Good evening to everyone and the listeners and the viewers at home. I'm of the assumption that, or of the opinion that the legacy being left by Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi has been received with different views, different. It brings different attention from different people because he is a man who held different hats. He was wearing different hats politically and also as a traditional prime minister and as a person who was assisting the society, as we've heard from the reporter that he was assisting in the society where at Mahlabathini. So it's bound to happen that there will be different insinuations on how his legacy should be interpreted. As a historian, from the traditional point of view, we understand the role which has been played by Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, a fundamental role in ensuring that the Zulu kingdom is the strongest and it's on the public eye, and its ceremonies and also the transition of power from one king to the other is strongly maintained. It has been very powerful in ensuring that the Zulu monarchy is at its stronghold.
Mr. Hlabisa, you mentioned in your response earlier on about the ANC, and we know what's at play now with regards to the multi-party charter, etc. There was, at a point, a wish that the issues between Prince Buthelezi and the ANC would be ironed out before he passes on. To what extent do you think that progress was made in that regard?
No progress was made to ensure the reconciliation between the ANC and the IFP. And I do not want to grandstand, but the ANC leadership know where things went wrong or got stuck on their side. It is unfortunate that Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi had to leave, his dream having not been realized. But I have also made a commitment that the leadership of the IFP will pursue the reconciliation agenda with the ANC, because the reconciliation does not mean the ANC and IFP becoming one political party. The reconciliation means we need to heal the wounds of the past for the sake of the people of South Africa, as we know the history we passed through in relation to violence. When we reconcile, we will not merge as one political party. We will remain as separate entities.
I understand that we have Princess Phumzile Buthelezi with us as well. Princess Buthelezi, thank you very much indeed for joining us tonight. Once again, my deepest condolences goes out to you as well as the family. on your loss. May you find a measure of solace from the good memories that you shared with your father. Let's talk about the man. Politics aside, what was your relationship with him? I'm assuming that he was consumed, with the politics of South Africa for the longest of time. But talk to us about that relationship that you had with him.
Good evening to Mr. Kumete and all the viewers. Thank you for your condolences. I really don't know where to start when I talk about my father, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, as his eldest child. In fact, we were 8 in the family, but now we are 3 because 5 of my siblings has passed on. I've been very close to my father since childhood, up to the last day of his death. Even yesterday, I just couldn't believe. When I went to the mortuary, I opened him, I kissed him all over in his face. It was as if he was going to talk. I just don't know how to describe the friendship which we had. We used to sometimes we'll sit in the kitchen discussing different topics with my father until 3 a.m. Until we'll say, hey, Sheng, let's go and get a few hours to sleep. And then we'll go and sleep. Even when my mother was still alive, we'll sit in the kitchen discussing, and then my mother will say good night to me and my father in the kitchen while we discuss, both of us. So all the time I was staying with him at home in Ulundi, as my brother is staying in Sentin, my sister is staying in Devon. So I really had a good time with him. Even when he was in hospital, I used to make time, although I'm always having a tight schedule with the legislature cases and legislature issues. I used to time to go and see him, even when I'm making legislation, the escort team which was looking after him day and night in the hospital, and then sometimes he'll hold my hand when he was really having severe pain. And then when the pain comes, he'll just scream, and then I couldn't believe a strong man like him, a very brave man like him, is feeling spirit, Messiah, oh my God. And then I could see that this is too much for him, this pain is unbearable. But as the time goes on, in fact, they sent him to theater. Even when another specialist who was once my medical manager, Dr. Bonga Shoba, came to visit him and asked why he was in theater, because he saw all the readings were normal. He couldn't understand why he was in ICU. They said, no, they wanted to take care of him more, to give him a special attention. But as time goes on, while he was in theater, we were told he caught pneumonia and other things. And when we were hoping that he's recovering, he was sent back to the ward, and then so that he can be able to see now the difference between day and night. Because when we are in ICU, you end up not knowing whether it's during the day or it's at night. It's always dark when you're in the ICU. So we thought he was really recovering, but he was very anxious to come home, not knowing, not understanding that maybe he wants to come home and then pass on. He used to ask his the leader of the team, Warrant Officer Stole, when he gets into the ward, he will ask, hey, Jobe, have you come to take me home? And Jobe, Warrant Officer Stole, used to hide and not get into the ward, waiting at the door, because he knows when he gets inside to greet him, he will ask him if he has come to take him home. So he was anxious to come home. We thought he will recover well when he's at the environment where he's used to.
Yeah.
So he came home. We were all happy when he was discharged. But to our surprise, yesterday morning, I got a call from my brother. I was out with my legislature work. I was in Devon, but I was on my way coming home, planning that since arts and culture is also my portfolio in the legislature, I was planning that I would come to greet him in the morning and then proceed to attend the reed dance. But it was not to be. I ended up going to the mortuary.
Princess Buthelezi, at the risk of prying too much, I just want to get a sense of, if you will, your last conversation with him before he passed on.
Yeah, on the 27th, on his birthday, we made arrangements that we'll all go to the hospital to make a small party, and the hospital respected us. They gave us a big boardroom to use. They took him out of his ward to the boardroom where we're going to be all able to get space there. We brought different gifts there. And I brought the big cake, which was made by a guy who is from Ulundi, but staying in Ngotu, which had 5 cakes going up as if it's a wedding cake. It was very beautiful. When we entered in that boardroom where he was lying in the bed, he smiled, looking at the cake. And then I went closer to him, we spoke, and then he lifted his hand and said to me, we thank God, thanking God for his recovery, because we thought he has recovered, because he could speak now, he could communicate with us, unlike when the pains were worse. He couldn't speak, he'll just grab my hand without talking, and then I end up not even seeing his eye when he's just closing his eyes all the time. But he could see us, smile, and even communicate with even the grandchildren, because there was a weekend when the grandchildren went to see him in Durban. I was not part of the grandchildren because I was doing some other work, as one is always committed with party work and then the legislature duties. So I last spoke to him because the phones were not with him, so they were with the grandchild. My late sister's son, Zamo, is the one who has been taking care of my father most of the time. Even when he had COVID last year, Uzamo was his nurse. Even now, Uzamo has been staying in Durban all the time, more than a month, looking after father. And my brother also was there in Durban, but Uzamo was carrying all his phone, so we couldn't talk with him while he was in hospital in the phone. But on his birthday, we left him looking at the iPad, smiling, reading all the messages from the different people who are wishing him well. Even the Archbishop Makgoba, Thabo Makgoba, came from Joburg. We were with him at the hospital, his spiritual father. And then even about his funeral, they spoke about his funeral. He chose verses which he wanted them to be used in his funeral. He chose some songs which must be used at his funeral. So we're all hoping that he's really getting better, because when he arrived here at home, he was full of joy when he was seeing his bedroom, that he's really at home. He had to be shown the bedroom and be sent to a special room which had been arranged like a hospital ward with all the equipment, which we were hoping that he was going to spend most of the time there, with a special bed so that he doesn't get bed sores.
Princess Buthelezi, we thank you very much indeed for sharing and giving us a sense, especially during the last days of Prince Buthelezi. We appreciate you, and once again, condolences to you and the family.
Thanks very much. We feel very humbled. Thanks very much to all the viewers. Bye.
All right, that was Princess Buthelezi, Prince Buthelezi, Mangosuthu Buthelezi's daughter there. All right, let's bring in Professor Bheki Mngomezulu into the conversation. Prof, good to have you on the program. And we've been talking about, I think, for over the last 2 days in terms of the complexity of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi's legacy. And, you know, it's varied. And some even, credit him for the 9 provinces that we have today here in South Africa. During CODESA, there was talk of unitary South Africa, the federal state. You agree? How would you describe it?
Thank you very much, Blaine, and good evening to your viewers. Yeah, first of all, I will have to send a word of condolences to the Buthelezi family, the Zulu nation, and then, of course, the entire South Africa and the global community. That is historically correct, because in times like this, we have to distinguish between fact and fiction. It's historically correct that the reason why we have 9 provinces is as a result of the negotiations that were done by the late Prince Buthelezi. You recall that there were talks that South Africa was going to be a unitary state, and then he proposed a federal state. So to meet him halfway, there was an agreement that there should be at least 6 provinces. As you recall, initially there were 4 under apartheid, and then later on there were 6, and then eventually they ended up being 9. I hear now there are talks that people are saying that they must go back to 6. Not asking the question, how did we move from 6 to 9 in the first place? So historically, it's true that he negotiated that, and that is the reason why then people are crediting him for the 9 provinces that we have. But then also, but then on the other hand as well, even the fact that the Zulu kingdom is the only kingdom that has land set aside for its people is as a result of his negotiations. You recall there was a time when he threatened to pull out of the Codesa talks when there was no space for the Zulu king. So those are some of the things that he did during those negotiations. And besides everything else that people have been saying since yesterday, those are the things that you cannot take away from him because historically and factually, they are correct.
Right. There's criticism, though, and it's emerged, be it from commentators or on social media, and whether it's the right time to talk about it is subjective. But, you know, with regards to some branding Prince Buthelezi, you know, as an apartheid government collaborator, which he strongly rejected. How has that, at that time, shaped his image and through the years, his legacy?
That's a very important question, Blaine, for two reasons. One, there are people who are saying that Buthelezi was a sellout because he agreed to be part of the Bantustan arrangement. The reality is that he made an argument that he wanted to fight the apartheid government from within. He didn't accept full independence like it happened with the Transkei, Ciskei, and many others. But then he ran the KwaZulu government, and then he said he was going to be the eyes and ears of the ANC. By the way, Blaine, the formation of Inkatha Nkululeko Isizwe in 1975 was not just Buthelezi's making, but it was an agreement between him and the leadership of the ANC. So therefore, the Inkatha Nkululeko Isizwe was going to fill that political void that had been created when both the ANC and the PNC and the PAC were banned by the apartheid government. So then those who are then saying that he was on the side of the government, they are looking at the period after 1979. Because truth be told, until 1979, Prince Buthelezi would go to Lusaka, Zambia, that is the headquarters of the ANC, to report about progress that had been made by Inkatha Nkululeko Isizwe within the country. Then the last meeting happened in 1979 in London, where Inkosi Mangosuthu Buthelezi had a meeting with the ANC leadership, including Oliver Tambo. And there was a promise made to him that when he came back to South Africa, at some point, Oliver Tambo was going to meet him. That never happened. That was the last meeting that happened between the ANC and the Inkatha Nkululeko Isizwe, which is now the IFP. So people then have to get those facts right before they draw to conclusions to say whether it was good or bad. I'm not there to make the determination, but I'm just accounting these events the way they evolved since 1975.
I'm going to go to our digital audience in a short while to get their take, but I just wanted to get Professor Ntuli's about some criticism that has been leveled against Prince Buthelezi. And you hear those voices coming up over these last 2 days that he pushed the agenda of tribal loyalties as well as ethnic interests above national unity. Do you think it's fair comment or misplaced?
It is misplaced. But before I say the deep condolences to the family, to the IFP, to the Zulu kingdom, the nation, and every body else. People who have not been involved directly in the struggle and to know what decisions we have got to make at a given time will tend actually to misunderstand things and bring up their own issues, which is exactly the same thing, that is happening. One of the most unfortunate things actually in South Africa is that we are able to extricate a leader from their own party, their own policy, and single him out, which is totally un-African, because the African proverb that says, a group of trees break the angry wind, but a tree that towers above the rest is broken by the wind. And it was not one person who wanted to be broken by the wind. People are always outside have anything. Right now, people outside the EFF are saying, oh, Malema is a dictator. When people attack the ANC, it's directed at maybe one person. So it is very, very important that when we make any criticism, it has got to be contextual. It has got to be done on that. If somebody is going to judge me on what I was 20 years ago, when for the rest of those 20 years, I have been correcting myself in order to become a better person. If we don't do that, then we are going to be what we always are. Very bitter, vituperative people finding absolutely nothing right. from the speakers that were in here, from Professor, from Hlabisa, and right up from Gidi, you get a very clear picture of how they are actually looking at it. Now, yesterday, I had made a statement somewhere. I had made more enemies in 2 days than in others. One of them said, "Oh no, that guy, he was a murderer. He was not even representing the Zulu nation. He was representing apartheid." What lies up there is that the people of KwaZulu-Natal, the IFP, and everybody else were just simply kind of dumb that they couldn't see that he was working, with apartheid. And then one of them came up and says, "Why are you even talking about defending, a man like this? The Zulus are not even a nation." When you say to him, "What is a nation to you?" He starts talking about taxes and all of these things. Those are the things that are in it. But let me come up again here. Mandela led the ANC, spent his 27 years, led us through all of these things. Today, you hear people are going to tell you that Mandela collaborated with the apartheid regime. So that's where I think is that we should just stop, in a sense, individualizing issues. If you have to individualize, say, you, as a leader of this, are you following what your people are actually saying, or are you moving ahead and dictating matters? Then, in my kind of concluding remark, actually, onto this thing, the words that struck me very easily, another good friend of mine, Bishop Mpumlwane, who said he wished that Mtwadaka would resign from the IFP and anything else and become a unifying force. But people do not know as to many do not know where it came from. Anybody who followed Parliament would realize that even when Zuma was actually in power, when there was chaos in Parliament, it was him that brought in order. EFF, DA, and everybody else turned up. He was actually the voice, of reason. So that man that is lying, down there for 70 years, with integrity, committed, himself to his nation, to his people. They can speak about ethnicity and all of these things. Of course, ethnicity is only when we are black. When we are English, we are not ethnic.
Well, thank you very much for your thoughts. I just want to take our digital audience now and get some perspective from them. Let's go to Lebo. Lebo, if you can unmute your thoughts on Prince Buthelezi's legacy.
Thank you, everyone. Oh, thank you.
Oh, it seems that we're having a bit of an issue with Lebo. We're going to try again. Lebo, we'll try to come back to you. Let's try to sort out your mic. Ayanda, let's take Ayanda. You have your hand up.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. Firstly, I would like to pass my deepest condolences to the family, the Zulu Nation, and also the Inkatha Freedom Party. I would like us to remember Mr. Buthelezi for all the good things that he has done for our communities, especially in rural communities. We can start from the traditional courts, how he reformed the traditional courts, making sure that they deliver justice and they are inhumane. And also to us as the youth, Prince Buthelezi made sure that he was inspiring us to further our education. We can start counting from the number of schools that he built and founded in Mahlabatini, which is where I come from, and also the higher education institutions. And he also made sure that we celebrate our education and we are inspired to further our studies as a youth. Thank you.
Ayanda, thank you very much. And just a reminder to our digital audience as well, we have the IFP President here, Velenkosini Hlabisa. So if you want to throw any questions at him as well, you're more than welcome to do so. Kustas, let's hear from you before we try Lebo again.
Yes, thank you, Blaine, and good evening to the panel and to the viewers. First, let me start and say condolences to the Zulu Nation, to the family of the Honorable Buthelezi. Now, let me ask a question here, Blaine. Are we allowed to be honest this evening?
Every day.
Because every day. Thank you very much. What if I was born yesterday and I hear this glowing tribute of the Honorable Buthelezi I would say he was a good man. But here's the thing. We talk about complexities. We talk about insinuation. The Honorable Hlabisa talks about violence. Who was in charge during that time? Let's not speak the glass as half full. Let's make it full. The Honorable Buthelezi, you have the visuals of Boy Batong today. We know what happened in Thokoza. We know what happened in Swineville. We know what happened in Shobani. Are we going to talk about that, or today we're going to whitewash that part of his legacy? So when we speak like this, we do not speak because we say he was a bad man, but we reflect on the actions that he took. I hear that he was a Christian. Did he ever visited the victims of Boy Batong and say sorry for the contribution that I made? I hear Ubab Hlabisa talk about violence. Where was he, Ubab Buthelezi, during that time? Therefore, I'm saying, if we're going to give a tribute, let's not whitewash the history. He was good at his end, but we know that today we're going to celebrate him. But let's not forget, he didn't even want this government like this. They had to beg him until the last hour in 1994. Are we going to talk about that, or are we going to whitewash it? And we give these half-truth attributes. To Ubab Hlabisa, let me ask, is he, now that Buthelezi is gone, is he going to take the mantle to try to go heal the wounds of Boy Batong, or he's not going to do that? That's my question. Thank you.
Kustas, thank you. Let's take it to Mr. Hlabisa. We had reporting of survivors of the Boy Batong massacre having mixed views with regards to the passing of Prince Buthelezi. Your thoughts?
Thank you very much to the comments made. I want to start with Gustav, the last one. It takes two to tango. It will be very unfair if you level the blame to one person and exonerate the ANC. I've never heard you accusing Oliver Tambo as guilty of killing IFP members, because in KwaZulu-Natal, 20,000 people died. 12,000 are IFP members and 8,000 are ANC members. The 12,000 members were not killed by IFP members, but they were killed by ANC. When are we leveling the same blame to the leaders of the ANC if we are honest of what we are saying? The truth of the matter, violence was something unfortunate for all of us, the ANC and the IFP. We both have to take a responsibility. That is why we wanted the issue of reconciliation. Even Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi wanted the reconciliation to be finalized before he passed on. Why? The ANC propaganda, if you could know, Gustav, for Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi to become the Prime Minister in the erstwhile KwaZulu government, he was persuaded by the ANC leadership, including Oliver Tambo in exile. But the ANC went to media and called him a sellout, which was a propaganda, having not confessed to people that for him to participate in that structure was to block it from within as mandated by the ANC. So now, to cut the matter short, the question of violence, the ANC is as guilty as the IFP. The leaders, the presidents of the ANC must be singled out equally as you single out Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. But if you want to build South Africa, we need to agree that we need reconciliation, heal the wounds of the past, but don't blame one person and exonerate others as if they had the right to kill other people. I think I'm done on that one. But just few things, my brother. Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, as some people say, he was a controversial person. What we must know, every individual is a unique person, not similar to any other person. And the way you respond in a particular situation is determined by the circumstances. You see, people who do not know violence at all, who were not there or who were very young, will have a different view from people like me. I saw violence with my eyes because I was already grown up by the early 90s. Now, to comment out of context, you will eventually blame one side. We are not shown the ANC pictures in whatever is being shown here. ANC killing members of the IFP. And the ANC has been involved in violence with the PAC, with AZAPO, with many other political parties other than the IFP. So now we should not create a wrong picture that it is only one political party, one president. This was an unfortunate scenario that engulfed our country. We need to heal such wounds. Thank you very much.
No doubt we'll try to get the ANC's comment on various issues that you raised, Mr. Hlabisa, on our various platforms throughout the week. Let's hear from Lebo.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear. Go ahead, Lebo.
Thank you for the opportunity and condolences to the Zulu Nation. I'd like to just explain my views on the matter. Having lived in the Vaal during the most violent time of my life, when the Zulu Nation was terrorizing the Vaal, and there were a lot of killings at that time, I am personally traumatized. And I say this because a few days ago, one of my children asked me who this man is who has passed away. And I caught myself actually talking about the past and so angry because I had to relay this story, and I was explaining to my son that this man who's passed away is the person who was trying to build the Zulu Nation, yet stepping on other nations and destroying them in the long run, because all I could think of, I was in school and schools would be out because there would be this thing that Mazuluki out, Zulu people are coming and all hell will break loose. Boy children would hide, put on skirts to pretend to be girls. All we had to do is find ourselves in police stations. It was chaos and people died. And now that I think about it, my dad was a policeman in that era. And I think trying to keep us calm and keep the household calm, it was quite difficult for them. Hence, I say, I think I am a generation that's traumatized by MaZulu, because the Zulu Nation, it was their way or there was just no other rule. It was their way or the highway. So I understand now listening to this conversation that for every action, there's a reaction. I wonder what was the decision that was made by the president of the IFP to have come to the decision of actually destroying people so much in the Vaal, hurting and killing and leaving such a tragic memory for all of us in the long run.
Thank you. Lebo, thank you very much. Let me bring in Dr. Ngidi into the conversation. And I wonder how you would reconcile the obvious hurt and pain that Lebo is talking about of the past with the need of unity of the present and future. You've heard what Mr. Hlabisa has said with regards to an unfair criticism, but when you hear that pain, how does one process that as a nation or as individuals going forward, Dr. Ngidi?
Yes, I've heard the presentations from Mr. Hlabisa, Kustas, and Team M. I'm also I'm from Inanda. I was growing up by that time, and also I'm not so much of a political historian, but I did experience the political war which was happening to an extent that we had to change schools. I did about six schools you'll attend, and then in March you'll have to leave the school and attend another school because of political chaos. But going forward, as Mr. Hlabisa has alluded, I'm of the opinion that it was two parties fighting. It was a political war, and no one should be exonerated. And history needs both sides of the story. We should not only focus on one part of the story, with the other ones being the heroes and the other ones being victims. And also, I think that moving forward, as we did with the Rainbow Nation, with the conversations and all the negotiations in post 1994, we should also take the same stance here, as Mr. Hlabisa has alluded that before passing away, Prince Buthelezi wanted the IFP and the ANC to smoke a peace pipe. So going forward, to heal the wounds and the damage that was caused by both parties, we need to the renegotiation or a table of talk, of a conversation, need to so that these discussions can be
conveyed. Yeah. I think context is very, very important. I just want to get our digital audience very quickly, fast running out of time. Komane, Eric, and then Solomzi in that order. Komane?
Good evening. Thank you to have me. I'd like to pass my condolences to the Buthelezi family, Zulu royal family. One thing I want to emphasize here. We know that if you are a person, when you are passing here, there will other people will just focus on your negative thing that you did when you are still alive, and again, they will focus on the positive things that we did when we are still alive. We understand all what happened, part one. Why all the time people they were silent when the Buthelezi was still alive? Because this thing now they were silenced. Now there's some allegation or some what happened at the part. So now we know that Prince Buthelezi it can be identified on different way. It was traditional leader. He was a politician. He was it was a Christian. So we know all such. So I know that other people that will just focusing on negative, other they will focus on positive side. But I think the reconciliation between ANC and IFP is very important, because some others now we want to blame. Okay, thank you.
All right, sorry. Komane, thank you very much indeed. I've got a minute, if I can split that minute between Eric and Solomzi. Eric? Oops, Eric, if you can unmute, let's take Solomzi and then go back to Eric.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, I am
Eric, if you can just pause, I'll just take Solomzi and I'll come back to you. Go on.
Thank you very much. Good evening to your viewers and listeners. Condolences to the Buthelezi family. One of the things that I would like us to look at during this time is the contribution made by Prince Buthelezi in South Africa and Africa as a whole, as a lasting legacy of his wisdom of leadership, democracy, and that lasting legacy can serve a valuable case study for aspiring leaders and diplomats. In terms of leadership that Prince Buthelezi has displayed, he has provided mentorship and guidance to leaders of the IFP in different spheres of influence. And therefore, that in terms of his leadership grooming and nurturing, his leadership talent can serve well in the development of, in the strategic development of leadership. So it is important, therefore, to
Sorry, Solomsi, I have to cut you off there. I just need to bring Eric, but I get your point. We hear you. Eric, last word to you, sir. You've got 30 seconds or less.
Yeah, good evening, Blaine, and condolences to the Zulu Nation. Quickly, the situation, as journalists were working here at the time in the early 90s, the situation was terrible. There were many people that were killed in the streets of Soweto, in their houses, everywhere, by people who were coming from the hostels. They were assisted by the police, the South African Defence Force, who were accompanying them at night, and these people were taking their houses. Most of the time, the people were on the defensive. The residents of Soweto, the residents of Togoza, and everywhere. They were mostly on the defensive. So the situation really is that the people had to form the self-defense units, and we had no stage where we saw people from the residents coming and attacking hostels. The situation was such that it was people defending themselves. That was the situation at the time. But now, this thing is past now. I think it's time really look forward to reconciliation.
Right.
Because as one of your reporters had said, Prince Buthelezi meant different things to different people. Those that were in the liberation movement, to them, indeed, they said he was a sellout, he was a collaborator, but to some, he was a hero.
Eric, thank you very much indeed. We'll have to leave it there. To all my guests as well, 1 hour is never enough, but obviously we're going to continue this conversation this week as well in the lead up to Prince Buthelezi's funeral. Thank you very much indeed for your time. And I want to just pick up something that Solomsi has said. Here's my take. Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi's passing affords us an opportunity to reflect and to put life and leadership in general into perspective, right? It allows us to ask critical questions, self-reflective questions. What is true leadership? What are the principles that matter given the state of play? Who embodies these principles? Do you? Are you willing to stand up for a just cause? Active citizenry births action and accountability, right? The over-reliance on others to affect change needs to change because people say a lot of things, but few walk the talk. As a leader, you don't want to play with legitimate pain, legitimate fear, legitimate frustration. You want to speak to it and have a countermeasure that makes people feel included and empowered. It's all about selflessness. Let it be about justice, not just us. And that's my take. If you missed anything, be sure to watch this episode of It's Topical on YouTube. Sports Live up next. If you're watching a repeat of this program, then as always, the news continues. Until next week, my brothers and sisters, take care. Bye-bye.